Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Nick Kanoki, Director of Technology for the Asset Leadership Network, and I'm excited for a conversation with Steve Corse, Facility Manager from Retina Mid-Atlantic. Steve just told me to put a CPMM behind his name, and I did, but then opened the wrong PowerPoint. So my apologies, Steve. Steve and Mike will give a bigger introduction for Steve in just a moment. We want to thank our patron members, Jacobs, Mantech, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI, and also all our organizational members for sponsoring programs like this and our newsletter. So if you're not getting our newsletter and registering for this weekly, please do so we can keep the conversation going. Mike, do you want to Executive Director for the ALN? Mike Bordenero, welcome. And please tell us about you want to talk about some past events first?
Yeah, but I also want to say, Nick, please stay with us for the conversation with Steve. And
Sure.
we have had people express interest in the topic of neurodivergence. So if there are any folks that are interested in joining the conversation in the after program, we can turn you into panelists, but we'll see how things go. So before we get to what we know is going to be a very exciting discussion with Steve, I want to talk about how I met Steve last week at the National Facility Management Technology Conference, where two of our members, Onuma Inc. and CDV Systems, were exhibiting, and they invited the ALN to come join them at the booth and promote the concepts of asset management to facility management. And Steve was talking to the keynote speaker right before I was going to, and Steve started talking about neurodivergence in the workplace. And it was just a wonderful discussion. We ended up talking more, and this is a leadership issue. And just as we've talked in the past about sexual abuse and other cultural issues that leaders have the ability to manage better and therefore improve the outcomes of their assets, including being more inclusive, was part of our paper to the Biden administration. And they responded with an inclusivity and diversity agenda. So we think that these discussions about intangible assets are very important. And I do want to mention also, last night we had a wonderful program with the United Nations and our colleagues at the Asset Management Council in Australia. And we'll be posting a link for that if you didn't get to see that live. It was spectacular. And we look forward to doing more things with the United Nations. But now it's my privilege to introduce Steve. Steve, come on down. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
So, what does CPPM stand for?
Oh, sequencing issues. Certified.
Property Professional Management?
No, that's my AFE certification. It's a Certified Professional Maintenance Manager.
Thank you.
AFE.
So yes, sequencing issues indeed. We had told Steve that our first question is, how did you get here to this point in your asset management journey? So I threw him a curveball by starting with a different question.
Yeah.
So we'll go to that one now. How did you get where you're at in your asset management journey?
In the way that I do everything, very broadly, narrowing down. I originally grew up in England, in Cambridge, where I went to college at Anglia Ruskin University. And I went there for communication and film, ended up kind of specializing in more kind of cultural studies, sociology, semiotics, linguistics, things like that. And then I met my ex over there and ended up living here. Then I was an HVAC technician for about 11 years. And then I switched to facilities because I had gone to a facilities conference looking for products. And I looked around and I thought, I want to do this for a living. This is what I want to do for a living because it involves everything and everyone all the time, and it doesn't stop, and it's constantly stimulating, and there's always more to learn. And
Welcome to the Asset Leadership Network,
uh,
Steve. That's what excites us too.
it's everything I ever wanted.
Okay, so where are you working now?
Right now, I work for Mid-Atlantic Retina. I've been here for 3 years. As of about 2 weeks ago, I just passed my anniversary. That is the longest single stint I've had in one place nonstop. Other than that, I've generally been about kind of 1 to 2 years in different places, bouncing around for one reason or another. But I came here and I finally kind of came home. And I'm found a
Excellent.
place where it's a perfect fit for me.
Can you talk about the scope of what you do?
Yeah, so we have 20 some offices around Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, all based around kind of centered around Wills Eye Hospital in Philly. Um, and when I came in, the company's been growing. They didn't really have a facilities department yet. They had a person who was kind of taking care of things, but it was kind of a paralegal who was calling contractors for things. And then during the pandemic, I applied. And when I found out that they had no plans, no preventive maintenance schedules, and it was just a blank canvas, I said, please, you have to hire me. Please. I have to, there's so much for me to do here and so much for me to learn here. And it's everything I've ever wanted. Please, please, please hire me.
So that's excellent. And we had co-written a paper with the UK-based Institute of Asset Management on asset leadership, and we said there are leaders at all levels. So clearly, being the asset facility manager, you are the leader on that level. But you have said things about what your impact is. But before we get to what your impact has been, can you tell us a little bit about the definition of neurodivergence and what we might see around us that we didn't realize, oh, that's neurodivergence?
Yeah. Or I mean, you see it, but you just don't know what it is until you know what it is. But basically it's going to be anywhere where there's a divergence from the normal neurology. So anybody who's neurologically different in one way or another. So that could be your autism spectrum disorder, that could be your dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD, Tourette's. It's a massive list, so I'm not going to give you the whole thing, but
Okay.
that's generally, and a lot of these conditions are co-occurring too. If you have someone with ADHD, there's pretty much a 50% chance they also have dyslexia or autism or any of the others. So you're always going to see overlap between the conditions, between the features. Well, not conditions, differences. But yeah, so a lot of
Okay,
people different.
that gives us
Yeah.
a good idea. And then the thing that really impressed me when I first met you last week was how you use this and your awareness that everyone's different and needs to be treated individually as a human being has really impacts the way you are leading at your company. Can you talk about some of the examples of the way you're able to bring people together?
Yeah, I mean, any organization I've worked for, whether it's been an office building with multiple tenants on the landlord side, or now I'm working on the tenant side, where we are a tenant to some landlords, we have buildings that we own and other things. The reason those buildings are there is because of people. And you have either patients or customers on one end that are the main reason for all of it, and then above that you have your techs, your admins, your doctors, your you name it. They're all people and they're all individuals, and there is more going on than them clocking in and clocking out at the end of the day, and they're not cookie cutter same. they're all different and they all have different reactions to things. They all have different levels of experience in as far as their lives and the things that they're dealing with physically and mentally. So you can't do this job without taking those things into account. You just can't. But it's also a great starting point, because if you're planning what you're doing, taking these things into account, that gives you a roadmap for where you're going to go. If you're going to do some construction work and it's going to be noisy, how far is that noise going to spread? What are the people within the sphere of that noise doing? Are they giving someone an injection in the eye? Because that's an issue. We need to cover for that. So basically, whenever I'm doing any kind of project management, you want to cover the bases, but you also want to be able to imagine all of the bases that you have to cover, because a base that you haven't imagined is probably going to go uncovered and is probably going to be a problem later.
That's so good. In my extensive career in the building industry, the issue that people have brought up is temperature control in the office. And someone could be cold and somebody could be warm. And that seems like such a minuscule issue compared to neurodivergence. I mean, it's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but if you also accommodate people's neurodivergence, the impact is incredible. And can you talk about some of the impact that you have seen that being thoughtful on neurodivergence has been beneficial to your company? Because what we really want to say in this program is how leaders should be more aware of neurodivergence and how to address it to help the impact of their organization.
Yeah, I mean, well, last year we had a bit of a management change and I got a new CFO and a new director. And the day that she became my boss, well, actually the day before she became my boss, I sent her an email and said, can we please have a meeting tomorrow? Because I need to come and give you the manual. And she said, okay. And she set me an hour in her schedule. And I think we were there for about 3.5 hours. And I had a whole bunch of things that I just had to talk about, just scrolled out on a piece of paper. And I worked my way down the list and I was like, I just have to tell you all about me, what I need to work best, how I react to certain things, and how to know when I'm stressed, how to know when I'm not stressed. Just for you to be my boss successfully, I need to explain to you who I am and how I work. Because if you don't read the manual, you don't know how it works.
So you gave her a manual on yourself. So leaders might want to be able to reach out, either through human resources or directly, and ask about issues, including neurodivergence, improve listening.
Yeah, because you're gonna see different things from a neurodivergent employee to someone who's not neurodivergent. There will be days where I do 2 days of work in one, and there'll be days where I pay for it and I struggle and my head is just going in circles. But so it's just, for me, it's been flexibility. I have complete control over my schedule. So I know certain days in the week, there's certain tasks that are better for me at that point in the week than other points in the week. It's not just, hey, we've got a bunch of tasks, let's put them in the line and do them. Because if you have something that's, heavy lifting with a high potential for complication, you don't want to deal with it at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. You want to do that Monday morning.
Everybody's neurodivergent then, by that definition.
Well, that's the thing, is that accommodations that you make for a neurodivergent employee work for every employee. They make life better for everybody. Accommodations in general make life better for everybody, which is essentially what we do in facilities and asset management. Our job is literally creating a better world. That's why this job is so awesome.
Steve, we haven't explicitly said the word culture, but I can only imagine, as you said, that was the new director that you went to their office for a 3.5 hour meeting. I can only imagine they may never have had that experience before, and that might have been quite eye-opening. And I'm interested to hear how the relationship with them have gone so far, but I can only imagine that would be a good way to start, kind of laying it out where you're at and what, your expectations, your needs clearly. I mean, it sounds like very good communication and something that could potentially, affect the way they and you work going forward, not just with each other, but with other people.
Well, I mean, we have open door policy with our managers. We can always go and talk to them. But I mean, so do a lot of people. But the difference is I felt safe actually doing that. I've worked plenty of places where we have an open door policy, but you don't feel safe using it. So I think the main thing there is just, I mean, in any relationship at all, if you want that relationship to work, the first thing that you have to have is safety. And that's not just, a wet floor sign. That's people have to feel safe being themselves, safe to communicate, safe to let you know when they have something bad to say, safe to know when they need something, because they don't want to feel like they're going to be invalidated. But I could go and talk to my boss because I felt pretty safe that she wasn't going to brush me off, invalidate me, not listen to me, anything like that. I was pretty safe knowing that I can go and tell this person anything. And if I can't, then maybe I don't want to work here. But I could, so we're good. And I still have my job.
Well, can you tell us about what you've done to bring the facility assets into a more organized way, and how your neurodivergence helped you take this blank slate? Because what you described is the condition at the majority of organizations in the world. Now, our audience has, pretty advanced facility asset management, but the majority don't. And those are the people we need to reach out to. So what did you do to help organize?
I brought in CMMS and I built it from the ground up. I did a lot of research to find one that would fit me well. So I needed something flexible that would work with connections, and because essentially with my dyslexia and my ADHD, two of my biggest challenges come with executive functioning and short-term memory, working memory. So if someone needs something, I need them to put a ticket in the system so that I have it in a place where I can move it around, but it's not in here because this is busy already. And oh boy, is it busy. So I just need to have everything on hand as far as information goes about anything to do with the buildings. And I need to be able to track trends, because the more data I can collect, the more happy I am, because the more trends I can find, and the more chronic issues I can solve, and the more future issues I can solve. So for the first month I came in, my boss did not give anybody my phone number. I was just there with a laptop and a CMMS, and I traveled around and I gathered up information, and I just built down to every room in each office. But then broken down into areas like clinical, admin, front desk, waiting room areas, common areas, plumbing, all those things. And then as we have time, I go around and gather large amounts of information, but also as things happen, I'm adding things in, so that everything that's ever happened, every bit of information that's come into the building is in my system, and I have access to it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to remember it, but I always have access to it either on my laptop or on my phone. And then, the other part of that is once you're using a work order system and not just emails, because if you have somebody receiving 1,000 emails, it's very easy to lose those emails. But if I have people putting in work orders, then I can prioritize them and everybody can see them, and people can come back and actually see the payoff in that they get communication out of it. Because as I get each job, I'll set up the steps that job or project is going to take. So then they get their 0 to 100% of where we're at going down the steps. And then we also have the comment bar. So if I have emails coming in and going out about a ticket, those go right in the comment bar. Because we were a little worried about compliance in the beginning, but I said, when people get the payoff of having the communication and knowing what's going on and everything is transparent, people like that, because people like to know what's going on. It's people like to have expectations. I like to set expectations because it's all about removing anxiety. When people don't know what something's going to cost, they have anxiety. When they don't know what it's going to take, they have anxiety. When they don't know, like, whereas if you can say, okay, this is going to happen on these days, this is going to be the noisy day, we're going to schedule it around your work. We're going to be done on this day and we're going to test it on this day. And all of the information at any point, you don't need to call me and ask me a question. Enough people are calling me and asking me questions at any given time anyway. So that saves me so I can do more projects because I'm not constantly answering the phone to 5 different people that maybe work in the same office, all asking me for updates on the same project.
Excellent. Nick really nailed it when he mentioned you're basically talking about culture. So can you tell us what some of the impact has been from the system as you go around to the different offices? What's the feedback? What are you hearing?
I have been told that it's like night and day because before office managers would have something happen and then they would need to solve it whilst also running an office. So, and these are people who don't have experience with pest control, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, flooring, sheetrock, et cetera, et cetera. So when you have someone who exclusively lives those things, it's easier because contractors, unfortunately, are not this magic bullet that you make a phone call and they come up and act in your best interests. They're just not. They can be once you get a good relationship with a good contractor. I'm lucky enough that I have wonderful relationships with some amazing contractors. But even when I'm picking my contractors, who they are and how they treat their people, especially, is a big part of that. The reason I have good contractors is they all have one thing in common. They are all good to their staff. When their technicians come out, they know that if they're going on the roof, I'm going on the roof with them because I don't want one guy on a roof. They're getting up, they're coming down, someone's making sure that they got down. Someone's helping them get their things up on the roof. Just being a kind human being.
It's real simple.
And because I come from the contracting side, I know full well that if you've just called me and called me and called me while your parts are coming in and got madder and madder and madder at something that's completely out of my control, then that's when offices start to tell you that your parts aren't in yet when they are. We don't have these problems because I call them and we set expectations at the beginning. I say, okay, how long do you think those parts are going to come in? All right, so we're going to plan this for a day or two after that so that we have a bit of a buffer because we don't want to disappoint anybody. And if your contractors are coming in and having good experience with your office and your office is having a good experience with them, and we're always meeting expectations, then people don't get that bad taste in their mouth where they start to get allergic to contractors and vendors. It just, keep everybody getting what they want and keep everybody doing good work because nobody gets up wanting to do a bad job in the morning.
Yeah. And then internally, what has been the impact among the different departments? You've talked about running or being involved in meetings and things being a little bit more friendly on
Yeah,
internal meetings.
yeah. Well, because we kind of have me flying around between everybody, I can kind of make sure that if someone is planning on doing something over there, that the other person who's going to be involved with that down the line knows about it and can have a conversation with them to make sure that, because I mean, if you've dealt with buildings for any period of time, you will usually run into where somebody's work has crossed over somebody else's work, and now you can't turn that valve anymore, or you can't access that access panel anymore. And when everybody knows that there's communication going on and their life is not going to be hard down the road because of what somebody else did, then it's not this competition where people are just trying to slam their stuff on top of each other. It's more of a collaboration, and then everybody likes collaboration because down the road, your life is easier. Everybody's life is easier, whether they're a service person or an end user.
And then leaders need to be aware of this wide range of neurodivergence. I didn't even know about the number dyslexia. I forget how to pronounce it, where you blur number.
Dyscalculia.
Dyscalculia. Can you say that again?
Dyscalculia.
And the just being aware that some people look at numbers and they're blurring, like with dyslexia, the letters are blurring or changing position, can be transformative.
Yeah, or floating off the page or crossing over.
Okay.
There's a number of different ways. Yeah, because with a lot of dyslexia, you'll also have like concurrent eye teaming problems and things like that, which will add to it.
Mm-hmm.
But or like for me, I have Erlen syndrome, which is visual snow, which can manifest in a bunch of different ways, ripples or shimmers. For me, it's just kind of fuzzy overlay of a TV screen over things, which is why I have these glasses.
They're corrective for that condition.
Yeah, it's because I have the hardest time when I'm looking at something that's high contrast. If it's fine print on a white page or just very dense print on a white page, they'll be flashing between the black and white. And reading will make me tired. And I will have a hard time. My reading comprehension is very high, which is why it wasn't picked up till I was 21 in college. But my ability to read over time and process that information, there's a bit of a delay. So I have learned ways to read now and ways to study. I highlight things with a highlighter. I have to have a physical book to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have to take extensive notes. But I've lost myself now.
No, that's okay. You've been going at a rapid pace for almost a half hour. You're allowed that. So can you tell us a little bit about what Mid-Atlantic Retina does and therefore why facility asset management is so important?
Yeah, we're retinal specialists. So we deal with the inside and back of the eye. So we have a lot of patients coming in and out all day, every day, getting various kinds of testing, photography, exams, and eye injections. So one thing that's very important to me is to know when those injections are happening around whatever it is that I'm doing, because I do not want to disturb a doctor treating a patient. That is my number one thing. If I can prevent disturbances to patient care, that's the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also the great thing about it is the owners of my business are working alongside us in the offices and experiencing the offices daily, which is one of my favorite things about this company, is that when I'm asking for approvals, I'm asking from people who are actively using the buildings that I am dealing with. They're not removed, so they have firsthand experience, but it's of a very, very tight angle because they are down in their corner. They don't see necessarily admin, they don't see front desk because they're over here dealing with patients. But it does create a really nice team atmosphere in that they do have an understanding of how many people are around them doing so many different things that support that.
Mm-hmm. And then the night and day evaluation of what you've brought to the company clearly is because you're touching every building that the people are working in.
I'm touching every building and I'm dealing with every person. And anybody, and like we were talking before about the open door policy is, I mean, I have an open door policy in that I will open your door and come and say, hey, what's wrong? How can I help you? So if
That's
people aren't
great.
going and telling because they don't have the time or they don't feel comfortable, I actively make them comfortable with telling me their problems. But which also seems to be a thing amongst other neurodivergent people I know, is that people tend to feel very comfortable coming and telling us their problems. I don't know why, but I cannot sit in public for, 10, 15 minutes without having somebody come and tell me their life story. And
Well, it's great that you knew clearly this is where you wanted to be. And I knew within minutes that I wanted to engage with you further. And the Asset Leadership Network has this thing called the ALN Senior Fellows, and we get people who are focused in certain areas. So we're going to have to keep talking about the possibility of an ALN Senior Fellow on neurodivergence or something along those lines, because the energy you bring is spectacular. That's one of the things that's pretty consistent with this organization. There's very passionate people, and then we don't have anybody focusing on neurodivergence. And
we didn't even get into neurodivergent strengths yet.
all right, so we just passed the 30-minute moment, so let's officially say thank you to the audience members who came for the 30 minutes. And now we can kind of kick back and relax. And this is all overtime. This is extra. And the things that leaders really need to know about is the strengths that they can unleash if they embrace neurodivergence. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, most different forms of neurodivergence are going to come with different strengths that you will.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's different, and each neurodivergent kind of area is more of like a spider diagram, where you'll be strong at this, have a hard time with this, strong at this. But one big one with dyslexia especially is, or even ASD is visual thinking. Visual thinking, gestalt thinking, and big picture thinking, and thinking outside the box. So I've been working an event in North Carolina, and I got a phone call from one of my offices who needed a plumber to come out. And when they told me which toilet was having an issue, in my head, I knew the layout of all of their pipes. I know how the water flows, and I knew which clean out they needed to go to. And I'm talking to a plumber who's arrived on site, and he wants to go pull a toilet. And I'm saying, no, walk to the front door, face out, take 6 steps. You're standing on top of a clean out. That one faces into the building. Look to your right. 3 steps over to your right, you'll find one that goes down the street. One of those 2 is the answer, and it's more than likely the one that goes into the building. And they'll say, thank you very much, because it was in the afternoon, and that guy got home on time that day. And he was happy, and we also didn't have disturbance in the office with him working in the office. But anytime we're designing anything or looking at blueprints or anything like that, I can already see the people moving around that map and how they're interacting with it, and where they may have hangups, or where there may be breaks in the flow, or the way that things are hung on the wall. I have an innate understanding of physics, and I can tell if something's not going to work before we've made it. And you can prototype that. I mean, it's thought experiments. Einstein has talked at length about thought experiments, but there's nothing that we don't do that I don't play out in my head in very, very fine detail first. And it's very useful for project management. If you're doing project management, you need to know what bases need to be covered.
Right.
And that takes a certain amount of imagination to play out the whole process of what you're going to do, from where the vendor's going to park, where they're going to access the building, who are they going to pass on their way in, how large are the items they're going to carry, do we need drop cloths, do we need containment, do we need this, do we need that? And then with my ADHD, it'll usually come in handy that if we do have something that's instant and very, very, very important, it's also very stimulating, which means that my focus will go like this. And once I'm hyper focused on something, that's when I will bang out 2 days of work in a day. Because it will become an obsessive an obsessive activity where I have to have resolution. And I never think clearer than when I do in a crisis, which is why you will find a lot of ADHDers working in emergency services or anywhere you find crisis, you'll find someone with ADHD.
Very interesting, because in the United Nations program last night, we were talking about the extreme disasters that are occurring, many of them because of climate change, but for whatever reasons, there's more fires, floods, tornadoes, and everything. And it's the people who are impacted and the first responders who are risking themselves to help. And if we understand what you just said, I did not realize that first responders are tending to be ADHD, then that can help me lead the team in a way that could be more productive.
Singular focus and resilience, and just once you set them on a path with a goal ahead of them, when it's important, especially, because one thing you'll find with a lot of neurodivergent conditions is a very, very strong bias towards fairness and justice. We cannot tolerate unfairness, and we cannot tolerate injustice at all.
We need a world of neurodivergence then, or we just need to accept that the entire world is neurodivergent. Everyone has their own neurodivergence.
We need to I mean we need to accept and celebrate people, but I mean there was I think it was last year or the year before, there was a study out of the University of Cambridge that was pointing out the evolutionary uses of neurodivergence and in times gone past, because with ADHD, not only are you going to see singular focus, hypersensitivity, and a high noticing of details. Once you're focused on something like that, you won't necessarily notice that you're hungry or cold or in pain. So if you have a hunter-gatherer society and you have people out there doing the hunting and the gathering, it's good to have the people who won't come back until they found the food, who don't know that they're hungry, who'll keep going.
Yeah.
Everybody has a place. And when you're building a team, all of these different pieces go together to create something that works well together.
So have you built teams? You talked about contractors. What about you're working with internal staff?
Internally, we have built a team across the last few years. It was originally just me. Then my boss said, "What do we need? Do we need another technician?" I said, "No, we need an administrator because I am a dyslexic person." And that is where I move the slowest. So if we can get someone that I can say, this is what I need on my Excel spreadsheet. I need somebody to make that Excel spreadsheet for me. And help just keep everything organized. Then on top of that, we've added a director above me who I have a hard time with executive function. He does not have a hard time with executive function. He is executive function. And at the same time, he's also incredibly emotionally intelligent. This is the one thing that I need from everybody in my department is emotional intelligence. Being able to understand who you're dealing with at any given time and what they're going through. We've just added an assistant beneath me, and that's something that he's pretty good at, and I'm training him on extensively, because I mean, we are the person who shows up when you either want something and you don't have it yet, or something's gone wrong.
Hmm.
You can't, it's very easy for someone to start associating us with problems, whereas we need them to associate us with the cavalry.
Solutions.
We are the people who will come and solve your problems. We are the people who will come and listen to your problems and won't invalidate you. And we provide solutions, and we are here to help, and we care about you.
Wow. Yeah, you're singing our song. This is beautiful. What about helping identify other people in the company as neurodivergent and making them feel more comfortable? Have you seen that impact at all, or am I reaching?
That is something that I am working on. A lot of the people we have are doing great just because of the way the company is set up, and the way we do things already. We have a really great HR department who are generally good at supporting people. But We had a managers meeting this week. I had been too busy to get my class together, but I will be doing manager training for all of our managers on neurodivergence and trauma and just understanding invisible disability and what other people are going through, whether it's patients or staff. Because what may have worked with the staff that you had before may be a different story with the staff that you have now. And you can't act with them and communicate with them in the same way because they're different people. And sometimes the problem isn't that, oh, you just got a bad batch of staff. It's that they're not the same people you had before, and they need to be treated differently. And you need to don't just do what you've always done. Everything is fluid. Deal with what's in front of you.
Okay, and when you say manager, what do you mean that you're going to be training managers? What type of managers?
I'm doing a class for our clinical managers because they're the ones that are dealing with patients and technicians and doctors all day, every day.
Okay, this is the first that we've ever heard of, is facility managers training the operational managers. And basically, I think when you're done with that, if your company gives you permission, we would like you to have that type of program for, a web program like this for the asset leadership.
That would be fantastic because I
Right.
would just like everybody to know the things that I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Steve, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a really good friendship and relationship. We have a no assholes. Well, we improved that to a no rectums policy. And our second policy is family first. So if anything ever comes up with family, then, just deal with that. That's more important than, the Asset Leadership Network. And I can't believe how closely you fit in with the principles that we've been advocating, and you're putting them into actual work. And we love highlighting everything that you've said and want to work with you in highlighting more of this in the future. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your perspective. And thanks to the audience that has stuck around. The comments have been very positive, and what you're saying is resonating well with folks. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be in touch.
I'll see you.
Bye for now.
Bye.